Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Liquid Culture Namaste. We are still here in the month of January 2020, the dry January, or probably should say off dry January. Haven't been as strict on myself this year for the January cleanse, but my wife and I did just get back from a nice little woo-woo experience in Austin. Went to Miraval Spa and Resort, did a little yoga, meditation, cleansing, some spa activities. So now that I'm back, wanting to kind of try and stay in that vein of doing videos or something a little bit more health conscious, non-alcoholic items, and I think that today's is a pretty big one in that regard. A little bit of matcha tea. Tea is one of those things that, if you're like me, you like to geek out on wine, terroir, varietal, all that kind of good stuff. Tea is another thing in which you can absolutely do that with, and a good substitute if you're trying to do a dry January, much like I am. So, got a little rainy, gloomy day here. Face is looking dewy AF from a bomb facial I had this week. So, feeling good, feeling happy to bring this episode to you guys. So, stick around, we're going to have a good time.
The Liquid Culture.
Alright, guys and gals, so made a little bit of adjustment here, made a little bit of room on the table, got my stuff lined up, ready to go. Quick note, as I mentioned, today is a little bit of a rainy day out here in Fred, so you might hear a little pitter-patter on the rooftop, and I came back from our vacation to a nice little leak from the window unit that keeps my wine and everything in here temperature controlled, so found a really nice little old teapot here that is not of use to me any longer to catch that water. Very apropos for the episode. So, guys, today, again, we're talking about matcha tea. So, a lot of stuff to talk about with matcha. I'll try and keep it as concise as possible. But, for me, matcha, I know it's probably something that most of you have heard of, but maybe haven't really gotten into it beyond something other than, say, like maybe you've tried a matcha latte before, or, had matcha put into a smoothie after the gym or something along those lines. And I personally did not start getting into matcha in the ceremonial kind of straight matcha drinking way until after I went and checked out Tom Sachs' tea ceremony exhibit at the Nasher Sculpture Center in Dallas, and really kind of put me on to it. My man Tom Sachs, I'm a big fan of Tom. He put together this incredible bricolage exhibit of the tea ceremony, the Japanese tea ceremony, kind of from start to finish, but in his beautiful, weird, wacky, industrial, kind of materialistic, capitalistic, sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of Tom Sachs spin that he likes to put on everything. And really enjoyed that exhibit. This book is insanely awesome. Lots of great stuff in this book. And even though it says tea ceremony manual, really this is more of just an art coffee table book, but it really could serve that purpose for you to go through and kind of see what it's like for the true Japanese ceremony. Obviously, we are not going to be doing that today. Today we're just going to do kind of a brief, quick and easy brewing of some matcha, just so that you guys can see what's up with that. But let's talk a little bit about matcha just to kind of get things rolling. So what is matcha? I mean, matcha is a green tea. Let's, just kind of get down to the core of what it is. It's a Japanese green tea, but the process to make a fine matcha is so much different than that of a traditional or standard kind of loose leaf tea. But in fact, matcha is the most ancient form of tea brewing. So we'll get into that as we talk about how matcha is produced. So again, Japanese green tea, terroir plays a huge role in all of tea production, but especially in matcha, since you're paying a high price. You want to be able to pick out some of those nuances from terroir to terroir. But essentially, matcha is harvested every spring. For the 20 days leading up to that mid-May harvest date, the tea trees, the tea plants are covered so that they continue to grow for the next 10 to 20 days in shade. And what that does is it kind of causes the tea plant to really kind of go into this defensive mode. It doesn't really know what's going on. It's lived most of its life in the sun. Now all of a sudden we're continuing our life cycle in the shade. So chlorophyll really starts to kick in, and you develop this really beautiful, it maintains this beautiful green color. Once the leaves are picked, there's a pretty, labor-intensive process that goes into the production of the matcha powder. So steamed to quit oxidation, so maintain our nice theanine levels, our good high caffeine levels, and green color. Steam to stop that oxidation process, and then we go through and all of the veins are pulled from the tea leaf. So all we're left with is a nice delicate leafy part of the tea leaf. At that point, the leaves are then dried and then stone ground to a very, very fine powder. Now, what this does and how it makes matcha differ from other loose leaf teas is when you consume matcha, you're consuming the entire leaf. So you're getting all the health benefits. It's like the difference in when you go to say like juice an apple. Juicing an apple's great. You get all the juice from the apple. You can throw it in to a smoothie or just drink it or whatever. But when you leave all that pulp behind, you're leaving other nutritious parts of an apple, fiber, other minerals, and things of that nature. So with matcha, you're getting the full beneficial nutritional effect of the tea as it was intended. One of those things being the theanine. So the theanine levels are incredibly important when it comes to the nutritional value of matcha. Theanine is a chemical compound that is only really found in tea. And if you want to consume a pure expression of that chemical compound, you need to consume your tea in that whole leaf form. Now, what theanine really does is an amino acid that combines with the very high levels of caffeine in matcha. So you get that really strong caffeine buzz like you would get with an espresso shot. Matcha will provide that for you. It's very low, and it's if you want to compare it to like coffee, a higher level roast for coffee, you've got a lot of that caffeine's been roasted out of the coffee. With tea, lighter oxidated teas are going to have a higher caffeine level, green tea being the highest. When you pair that with a theanine, it kind of activates the other side of the brain. So you've got this really high caffeine level, but you've got this like stress reducer that's happening as well. So matcha is a very unique beverage in terms of the way that it makes you feel by having that high caffeine with the theanine bringing that kind of jittery thing down. Very focused, very creative kind of mindset that you can get in when drinking matcha. Other things, obviously antioxidants, very, very high in matcha green tea, and in fact usually 10 to 20 times higher antioxidant levels than you would get with any other kind of standard green tea, and then in addition to all the other good vitamins and minerals that you get. So the next thing I want to talk about is differences in matcha grades. So you've got food grade matcha, very, very low grade. You've got kind of standard grade matcha, which, can be used to drink into pure form matcha, but not the best. Ceremonial grade is what we're going to be drinking today and what you really want to kind of splurge on. So let me get kind of set up here, and we'll get into brewing it and tasting it. All right, guys, so I've got my water up to temp right now. Temperature is very important when it comes to making really good matcha. I've got my temp set right now to 176-ish. That's about 80 degrees Celsius. 80 degrees Celsius is about as high as you want as hot as you want your water to be when brewing matcha. So I usually like to keep it between like 160 and 180 degrees when I'm making my matcha. Now, back a little bit to talking about the difference in grades. I've got two matcha here to show you guys, and you can tell a noticeable color difference in the two. Let me see if I can get this really good for you here. All right, so you can tell the one, I guess, to the left of the screen there, the real vibrant, bright green, that's our ceremonial grade matcha that we're using today. The other one that's a little bit kind of murkier, kind of brown in color, that is the lesser grade matcha. Still a decent grade matcha. I'll show you guys. So that kind of lighter, browner color came out of this bag here. This is a matcha that I like to keep on hand for adding to smoothies. You know, maybe make ice cream out of it, put it into, you know, just anything that you're really wanting to use matcha for that isn't straight up drinking ceremonial grade matcha. The other matcha is going to be in this little tin here. I got this from Adagio Tea online. It's Uchi Matcha from a province in Kyoto, which is a very, very well-known province for the production of matcha tea. Difference in price, matcha can get quite pricey. For the bag, guys, 20 bucks for this bag of matcha. That's 3 ounces. So even though I am using this where I'm not really getting the full nuance of the tea, I still want to make sure that I am getting good quality matcha so that you are actually getting the good health benefits from it. Otherwise, what's the point, right? So again, $20 for 3 ounces in that bag. This is a 2-ounce tin of matcha that was twice that, $40, an ounce less of matcha for double the cost. So $40 for this tin. It'll make a good number of cups, but I mean, that goes to show you kind of how expensive matcha can be. But lots and lots of health benefits coming out of matcha. So let's brew it here. Now, what you guys, you know, what you're gonna need here, I think, you know, if you are serious about tea drinking, coffee drinking, having an electric kettle is paramount. Just boiling, getting water up to a boil on a stove and then hoping you can bring it down from temp there to get the right brewing temperature for tea and coffee. It's not worth it. Spend the, you know, I think 40 bucks maybe you can get a nice Bonavita electric kettle like this so you know exactly what temperature your water's at. I would say that's crucial. Your whisk, your matcha whisk, I'm sure you guys have seen this before, also a crucial piece in making a good cup of matcha. I've got a nice kind of ceramic matcha bowl here just because I really enjoy going through the process of drinking matcha and I do it regularly. If you're not going to drink it that much, I would say, you know, any kind of standard kind of bowl about this shape and size will do for you. Other things you might want to use, I'm not going to do it today, but sometimes I'll sift my matcha through a sieve, a little, you know, to break it up into a really nice form, unique powder. The other thing that I'll be using today, but is not 100% necessary, is my little scale here. But again, this is something that I have because I'm serious about getting the right weights down for other things like coffee, and I have it on hand regardless. So not totally necessary, but definitely worth it for if you're wanting to get serious about coffee and tea drinking. So that's that. So what we're gonna do is I like to go with a ratio for my matcha of 2 to 2 is kind of the benchmark I like to start at. So 2 teaspoons of matcha to 2 ounces worth of water. That makes a pretty nice thick consistency matcha. You can go with a higher water content if you want something a little thinner that's going to last you a little bit longer, that's more than just a shot. And obviously you can increase your ratio to 4 to 4, go down to 1 to 1, just depending on how much you're wanting to drink. So my little spoon here, I normally have, you've probably seen the little hockey stick shaped matcha spoons before. My dog Winston decided to chew that up, so I'm kind of going with this little standard spoon here. So this is about, I'd say it's about a teaspoon and another teaspoon's worth here. So you can see really beautiful, vibrant green color. That's really your sign that you've got a good quality matcha, that it was shade grown, hand picked, really well taken care of, labor intensive process for a really nice matcha. So that's gonna go there. Okay, so guys, what we're going to do, I'm going to turn my scale on here so that it's nice and zeroed out, and I know that I'm getting exactly my 2 ounces of water in here. The way I like to go with this is to drop a little bit of water in at first, just to kind of create a little bit of a paste with the matcha. And that way you can really make sure, especially since I'm not using the sieve to get a nice even form of powder in here, this really ensures a really good little, you know, concise powder. Pour the rest of that off of there. Make sure I get up to that 2 ounce mark, a little bit more, you know, I don't want it to be too super thick. And then we're gonna mix it up in here. Make sure that all that paste is kind of gotten into the water. And then at that point, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to start whisking in kind of like a W fashion or an M fashion, just to start to create a nice frothy head on the matcha. So that's a big key, guys, when it comes to making matcha at home. You want to have a really nice frothy crema on top, much like you would with, say, like a good shot of espresso or a really well brewed cup of coffee. You want to have a really nice creamy foam head on it. Now, when you're whisking, you wanna keep it up off of the base of the bowl and just keep the whisk suspended in the water while you're whisking your matcha up. The idea here is that we're wanting to really well incorporate the water with the powder so that we're not like chewing on our matcha, but it will still create a really nice thick consistency, especially depending on the kind of water ratio you've used. So take a look here. You can kind of see it's going to be tough to do because of the camera angle. Yeah, you guys aren't going to be able to see that. But if you could, I mean, maybe in the bottom of the bowl there a little bit, you can see I've got a little bit of a nice frothy head. I'll take a picture and put it up on Instagram so that you can really see exactly what a nice frothy head of foam on matcha should look like. But at this point, let's get into drinking it and talk about the flavor profile. So matcha, when it comes to drinking it on its own in a ceremonial fashion like this, as opposed to if you're getting it in a latte or a smoothie or something like that, the noticeable flavor profile with any matcha is going to be grassy, mossy earthiness. Little bit of bitterness as well, because remember, we're not steeping any tea leaves and then removing them and just drinking the liquor. What we're doing here is we're actually consuming that powder. So you have this slight bitterness, but the kind of the reward for anybody who drinks matcha, and the reason that they continue to go back time and time again, is once you've gotten past that bitterness and you've got that really nice creamy umami characteristic on your palate, there's this lingering sweetness. It's really kind of tough to describe. It's almost like a milk sweetness. You know, like milk isn't necessarily thought of as something like a dessert or a sweet treat, but if you drink milk regularly on its own, you know that milk has this kind of sweet quality to it, and matcha is very similar to that. It has this really great, smooth, buttery, umami character on your palate with this lingering kind of slight sweetness. And really, if you're drinking matcha for the health benefits that you get from it, then not only is that slight sweetness that you perceive a reward, but you know that you're drinking something that's very high quality. A lot of hard labor went into creating, and that is going to put good things like antioxidants into your body and give you a really solid caffeine buzz. It is 3:30 in the afternoon here. Got a little bit behind in getting this filmed, so I will have a really solid but well focused, because of that theanine, really nice solid caffeine buzz going probably until about 9 p.m. tonight. So really looking forward to getting some laundry and stuff done around the house today. So guys, I would highly recommend, if you are someone who, you know, likes to geek out on good quality consumer products like wine. I assume if you're watching my channel, you probably really love wine and like to geek out and make sure you're getting really good quality wine and really like to know the story behind it, where the grapes came from, who made it, all that good stuff. Tea, and in particular matcha, is a place that you absolutely can do that, and do it in a way where, you know, if you don't feel like doing, you know, opening a bottle of wine, or you don't, you know, you want to do a nice dry January cleanse, matcha is something you can focus that geeky energy on and really dive in deep on something that is going to really be a benefit for you because of it. So that's about it, guys. Like I said, looking forward to upcoming videos. Gonna have a coffee video coming up here as soon as I get my coffee in from Apex, and then going to be doing a kind of a multi-part series on other types of teas, kind of loose leaf, black, green, oolong, that kind of thing. And I think it'll be a fun little January cleanse, guys. So Mitchell Chirac, The Liquid Culture, thanks for being here with me. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.